Welcome, everybody. We're back. I know it's been a couple of months, I believe, right, Jerry? A couple of months.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yes.
But sometimes life becomes life. So I, I, I'm gonna tell you for myself. Last few months, with the politics and everything going on, I've been kind of like stepping back from the light, from the public. I think that's the right term. To kind of focus on on me, right? How about you, Jerry? What you been going? What you been up to the last couple of months?
For me, I've been kind of doing like you've been doing, stepping back, do a lot more reflecting. I actually been working on a book that I've been trying to write called A Temple in the Dust. And then I've been working on my Bible devotionals, trying to get those
Okay,
written and hopefully published along with the book. So like you, reflecting on life.
yeah, all right, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we all need that sometime, right? And I really would like to know what you guys been doing. Okay, so if you want to type something online, that would be awesome. All right. Um, so let's talk. Let's catch up with what's been going on. All right. Let's start with the Supreme Court ruling yesterday, opinion yesterday, um, regarding cannabis and weapon owning a weapon and being a cannabis user, right? For I'm gonna use them. I think the term they used was a illegal drug user. If you a person that use any illegal substance. Second Amendment cannot be restricted to them because of Second Amendment. Is that what you understood, Jared?
Yeah, that's how I kind of understood it myself. I thought it was a really interesting case. Um, I don't know too much about it myself because I seen it come across my feed yesterday, and I was in the middle of trying to read about it, and with life happening, and I didn't get to finish some of the articles I was reading. But in a way, I kind of while you were explaining it, is how I was kind of
Yeah.
seeing it. So
Okay, so yeah, a quick background, right? It was a gentleman in Texas. He bought a weapon. Uh, in the When you buy a weapon, you gotta fill an application so they can do a background. One of the questions says, do you use, illegal substance, including marijuana, etc., etc., whatever, right? He said, no, I don't. He was a marijuana user. Got the gun. I don't know exactly what happened in between where he got a spotlight on him. I find out he was a cannabis user. So they were trying to give him 10 to 15 years for filling a government form, with a false statement, with a lie, right? Right? Because supposedly, if you are a drug user, any kind of drugs, in a sense, illegal specifically, you'll be denied from owning
hmm.
a weapon. Okay. What Supreme Court said is that's not right. That's ultimately what that said. And the gentleman in Texas got his case overturned. So what do I foresee happening, right? I foresee that question being a little more specific. Okay, and the way they looked at it, they use alcohol, for example, a person that's drunk and a drunkenness, you know. Uh, um, and being drunk doesn't disqualify somebody owning a gun. However, you cannot be drunk while being in possession, physically possession, like owning a gun in my hand. I cannot be drunk and doing that, right? So, so that was the argument, and cannabis specifically being so commonly used in today's society, they use those factors as that this doesn't make sense. We need to come out with a better, a better system. So that's ultimately, which is a big deal for weapon owners who are also cannabis users, right? Um, and another thing that came out actually, I think it was Florida, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Excuse me, but there was a case, excuse me, saying that you cannot be punished if you have a small amount of marijuana in the car and a weapon in the car.
Hmm.
I think it was Florida. They came out with that, you know, and the reason I think the idea there was that, flower itself, when it's not burnt, it's not intoxicating. I think that was the, now I might be wrong, and if I am, somebody please correct me. But that was two of the few cases that we've been looking at. And if you guys do not know, I'm a nerd. I like doing that stuff. Um, what's your input, Jared? What do you think?
Well, I was going to ask about okay the case in Texas. So the guy was a medical user of marijuana. Is that what you were saying? He uh,
No,
he
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 was
medically
he was an illegal user. He did not have
okay.
a medical license.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah.
I believe I might be wrong. I might be wrong. Okay, but that was my
Yeah.
understanding.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
I mean, so
because
basically, they're saying he lied
yeah,
on the form. Then is what he
yeah,
is what they're saying. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, but the form itself was found to be, the way it was written, unconstitutional, a violation of the Second Amendment. You know, and now, just to be clear, I support the Second Amendment very strongly. However, I do believe, there's some people that should not. If you get in trouble for violent acts, for example, beating your wife and your kids, domestic violence, I think some rights should be limited. If you have a history of violence, let's say that, that's where I stand. That's what I believe. But there's a lot of what ifs. What if they lie on you, Jared, and said that you were a psychopath and you threatened to kill me, right? Would that would that
Yeah.
lie would give anybody a constitution to take your weapons away? I don't think so. You have to be found. And I don't mean, I didn't. I was being general. I didn't even mean nothing by it, Jerry. I really didn't. But you know, that was the first example that came to my mind. But if you are you are a violent person. You being something. You know, you know what I mean. Something very messed up. You know, in today's society, the Constitution, it is what it is, and I love my Constitution, and I think it should never be changed. But we do have to look at society the way it is, and we do have to protect society from some individuals, even if it means X, Y, and Z. That's just my 2 cents, and that's the same thing with cannabis. For example, right? There's people that abuse that, and they can have psychosis episodes, right? If you
Right.
are, like, what doesn't make sense, right? Like, we got to make sense of the law. And that's where I stand with when it comes to the Constitution. We have to not abuse it, not politicize it, not, but we have to use common sense. That's just what I think.
Right. You know, I since I don't know much about the Supreme Court case, I wish I did,
Yeah,
but I know I'll speak a little bit on experience and what I know about cannabis, and from what I understand and research.
yeah,
You know, there's not a whole lot of, I mean, instances of violent behavior that comes from cannabis, but there is a lot from alcohol. So
Yes.
then again, we all know ourselves. I mean, let's be honest. I mean,
Mm.
if I drink alcohol, I'd be a chaotic wreck, right?
Yeah.
If I smoke
That's
a joint,
me
like you and
too.
I were telling, if I smoke a joint, like we were saying before we came on, I wouldn't even want to
Mm.
leave my couch, my house,
Yeah.
you know. But if I drink, that's a different, drinking will put me more in the mood to party. Weed
Yeah.
keeps me on the couch, So I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. I guess
Yeah.
I'm not with you. I'm not saying a person can't experience psychosis while using cannabis because a person can. So I mean,
Uh, uh, yeah.
we're all different in our minds and how we use it too. I mean, that's the thing
Mm.
I think is beautiful is that we all have choices that we make, all of us, right?
Yeah.
I use medicinal purposes, right? I know people who use it and they
Mm.
get high and they're high all day long.
Mm.
But that's their business. They're not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
But they're not the type of person I know will go and grab a gun and shoot anybody either. They'll like me,
Right.
they won't get off the couch. Yeah. And
Yeah.
they'll have a good time. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna do more on the case. The next time we talk, I'll have a little
Yeah.
more on the case. But it's interesting. It really is. I'm with you. I love my constitution. I don't want to change. I'm with you.
Yeah.
But I do know that people in this world we need to protect. So I'm with you
Yeah.
in that regards. Yeah.
And I'm a constitutionalist, and if we want to have a video on this down the road, we can't because I often compare the First and Second Amendment. And the reason I do that is because they were pretty much the principle of this country. Freedom of speech and the right to own a gun, right? But even speech was limited in a sense. Hate speech, and I'm talking about specifically hate speech, right? So, and that was something that was changing. I believe 1930s, where they created the hate speech clause. And the reason they did that is because they were mailing porn. Yes, you heard me right. They were mailing porn to everybody in the community without regards of their beliefs, right? So that kind of like was a First Amendment argument. You can Google it; it's actually very good. But my point is, there were amendments to the amendments uh, um, to address situations that's happening right now. Now, I'm not saying take my AR, uh, because you better not take my AR. We're gonna have an issue. But what I'm saying is, right, always keep in mind the 0.1% because there's always that one,
It's
you
true.
know?
So, yes.
And that's what I'm gonna say about that. Okay, what's the second? Let's not beat the horse on this one. Second subject was the classification, right? Now, Jerry, what are your thoughts there?
Man, for me, I think it's a good thing. The reclassification will help to bring further research into cannabis, and I think that's a good thing. The more research we can have, because the beautiful thing about cannabis is that so many people focus on THC, right?
Mhm.
Some people think bad word when you say THC. Some people, like us who use it for medicinal purposes, know that it has a place with cannabis. So does CBD, THC, but the terpenes also have their own level of medicinal purposes. And so the more research on the terpenes, the more we'll understand. And I would love to see even more research done on the trichomes,
Mhm.
that, what else could be found in that plant.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing. I know some people don't, they're, I see
Mhm.
the chatter online. Me, I see the positive. There's always
Yeah.
negative and everything, but I try to look for the positive, and
Right.
focus less on the negative. Yeah.
Sometimes what drives me nuts is when you see a commercial, trying to advertise some medication, there's always that there might be possible or side effects that could be you dying, like literally, right? But they're still promoting that stuff, even if it's like I said before, the 0.1% that's going to be affected. They still got to tell you that, right? I think with cannabis, and again, anybody that ever heard my videos, our videos, would know that I am a pro medicinal cannabis person. Okay, I do not believe in cannabis. Let me reverse that statement. I do not advocate for what is that called? Recreational cannabis, because that's not how I use it. If that's how you use it, that's good and dandy. I respect you. It's all good. But to me, cannabis, just like any other medication, has its benefits and its downfall. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of times the downfall comes up when you abuse it. And I'm talking about generally, generally, because sometimes we can be allergic to things. I'm allergic to penicillin, for example, right? You cannot give me penicillin. I also know I get sick when I smoke sativa, right? So why am I going to smoke sativa? So you got to know your body, right? But and I think that's why it's really good with the classification to three, right? Is that's going to open the doors to those studies, and I hope they take their time, not like COVID, that they, not like COVID, where they got the vaccine without barely any trials. They start, giving it. I hope it's not like that. I hope there's actually, legit medicinal use. We already got a lot, but I just wonder what else can we do with it. And I think that's where the blessings comes. God gave this to us to use. Now we can choose whether we want to use it for good or not so good, right? So that's my 2 cents when it comes to classification. Same thing with psychedelics. And I mean, I'm a firm believer that every substance put on this earth, you know, it was put on this earth for a reason. You know, so in saying that, I am very open to additional medicinal approaches to alternative medicinal approaches to medicine. I feel right now we have a very narrow path in which we treat everybody at. Here's some pills, boom, boom. And if you do not know, 1990s, going in the 2000s, that's what created the opiate epidemic. The idea that this magic pill would be the answer to all your pain, right? So we have to be careful there. We also have to, I advocate for medical cannabis, marijuana. I'm very open to it, but I'm also not blind to the negative effects, and I cannot be blind about it. I have to accept it. What are your thoughts there?
Absolutely. I agree. There's always negatives, positive negatives to everything. I've had a
Yeah,
few negatives with cannabis starting out. Um,
yeah, me too.
you know, was experiencing with it RSO. I didn't realize how strong RSO was. And I took a
Yeah,
little bit too much, and
yeah,
my heart felt like it was racing, and it wasn't that
yeah.
the cannabis was at fault. I wasn't paying attention. Does that make sense? It wasn't the plant
Right,
wasn't at fault.
right.
My own negligence of not paying
Yeah,
attention was the problem. So I realized right away, like, oh, I'll not do
yeah.
that again. It's not to do with the plant, is that I didn't need that much.
Right,
So
right. You know,
yeah.
I totally agree with you, man. And I'm gonna give you an example of, and it's not related to the plant, but an example of how my mental health navigation came to be where it is right now. Um, like many of us, when I left the army, I left in what I knew to be normal. Make sense, right? So they start the VA, prescribed me some antidepressants, but they didn't know how I was going to react to some of them. So I did some tryouts. Some of them I became very suicidal. Some of them I became way too passive, right? Too numb. So it took a while for the VA to find the happy medium, right? I think with cannabis, being in the mix, the happy medium can actually be can open up to a lot of people. Because now we don't always got to go to, marijuana. We can now go to, that's not what I meant to say. Now we don't only have to go to, pharmaceuticals. Now we can go to alternatives, treatments out there. We could be psychedelics, cannabis. So even just pure therapy, that seemed to work too with all the studies going on. Just that's just my thought. They have a larger approach versus that narrow, pharmaceutical approach. So my 2 cents about it. Very excited about what's going on. Very excited about the cannabis movement. I think there was a study there that majority of American. Let me first a statement. A study that a great amount alcohol use has decreased while cannabis use have increased into the society. That shows, and I think it's been recognized that there's a lot of medical use, and even the Second Amendment case, even the judges recognized that it is not the same as being an addict. Cannabis users, it's not the same as being an addict. It's two different things. An addict and a user. Do you depend on it, or do you get relief from it? Right? It's a difference. So, yeah, Jared, what you got?
We're approaching 22 minutes, my brother.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and that's what I was
yeah,
going to say. We are 22 minutes, so let's close this out. It's been great to be back. I don't know if
yep,
everybody can hear my birds, but I got a lot of birds in the background, and I'm really excited to the next conversation, the next sit
yeah,
down. How about that? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We're definitely
Um.
gonna work. We're gonna get more consistent.
Yeah.
We'll do our best. But life
All right,
happens.
boss. Sometimes it happens.
All right.
If you guys want to hear more about what we gotta say, shoot some, some subjects. Let's talk about this. Let's get some, bring some ideas. All right. Thank you for your time. Jared, you got anything for the group?
No, all I wanted to say is I just want to thank everybody who listens, who engages. Thank you. The love and support means a lot for both of us. Just continue to do that. Share us out. The most important thing is to share us out. Like share out these videos with other people. That's probably the most important thing that helps the algorithm the most is just sharing us out and liking and sharing the most important and even dropping a thumbs up, man, in the comments. Like if anything helps the algorithm to get us out. I've learned that through social media over the years. But other than that,
Yeah.
have my brother.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Have a great day and God bless. Peace.
Bless y'all. Thank you.